you need some lexical lubricants to help your ideas flow. It is true that it's a little bit like opening one of those old-fashioned jigsaw puzzles. You have a whole pile of stuff, you know it fits together somehow, but you're not quite sure how yet. So just pushing a big pile towards your professor without putting the picture together doesn't do any good for either you or your grade. So here's some very, very specific engineering tips for your essay, how to sort of engineer flow into your essay. First of all, at the paragraph level, it's great to start out by referring back to the previous paragraph. A lot of you have learned something called a topic sentence at the top of a paragraph, which means here's what's coming next in this paragraph. This is more like a two-step process where you say, here's what we did before, here's what we're doing next. So last week we looked at rocket-powered research. This week we're looking at tempting transitions, so we know what to do with that research. And so this is, as I say, a two-step process, and that's the first two things on the list here. Of course, using transition words, which include everything from because to although to hence to however, to tie everything together at the sentence level is equally important. So yes, you have to make transitions at the paragraph level, but you also need to think about making transitions from sentence to sentence, from idea to idea. And there are a large number of websites out there. If you just Google transition words, you will find literally hundreds of sites ready to tell you lists of highly useful transition words. English is a rich language. We have a lot of them. Here's something that's interesting. Many students say they're afraid to repeat key ideas and terms because it might be too boring. But you know, this is not entertainment writing. This is information writing. I repeat myself all the time as a teacher. There are only 3 rules of teaching: repetition, repetition, and fill in the blank. So repetition is essential, and it actually improves the flow. So coming back to the key idea here, tempting transitions are a way to make better research papers. I'm trying to demonstrate this as I go along. Also, don't be afraid to use a very simple structure, actually, especially when you have a really complicated argument. Using ABC or 1, 2, 3, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, first I'll show you this, second I'll show you that. These are very simple transition tools that are super powerful for readers. If you can guide a reader through a complex argument with a simple argumentative structure, the readers are grateful and the professors give high grades. Introducing every quote is an essential skill. Students get a little lazy. They start to use MLA as a way to skip introducing their sources. And introducing your sources establishes your credibility, establishes the credibility of your sources themselves, and helps lead to a smoother paper. And we'll have a separate top 10 tips coming up about how to do that soon. Explaining the quote is just as important. I will have a screencast about what they call quote sandwiches in high school, but that's where you introduce each quote the quote, present your evidence, and then above all explain the quote. And the whole burger there, the top piece, the top bun on your burger is introducing the quote. The quote itself is the burger, or the tofu burger, the veggie burger, the impossible burger for those of us that are vegetarian, and the bottom bun is a gluten-free piece of something. But the main thing is introduce every quote and explain every quote. Thesis tie-ins is a big favorite of mine when I'm doing my own writing. I like to get to the end of my paragraphs and ask myself, so, Dr. Scott, what did that all have to do with what you're trying to prove in your thesis? And it's a way to check in with yourself that you haven't wandered off topic, gone off on a tangent, built this beautiful paragraph full of beautiful evidence that actually isn't relevant to what you're writing about. So I find this to be an essential technique, and often I find that I have to delete paragraphs or rephrase them or rephrase my thesis in order to make something fit in. If it doesn't fit in, it doesn't belong in the paper. And it's the thesis tie-in that does this for me. So that is an essential transition for me. I like to use a bridge transition, referring backward and forward at the top of my paragraph. I like to use sentence level transitions all the way through to keep things flowing smoothly. I love using 1, 2, 3, ABC, argumentative structures, quote sandwiches, of course, but the thesis tie-in is really where I find out if I knew what I was talking about in that paragraph and what does it actually prove. A nice template is like, this proves that, this shows that. In terms of my overall argument, this demonstrates that. You don't always have to be quite that obvious, but it really helps. Asking questions make great transitions. So think about this at the beginning of a paragraph or moving from one point to another. And inserting naysayers is another fantastic way to move from one topic to another. Some critics argue that, however, that you've been doing top 10 tips. I mean, you've been doing they say, I say. So you know there's a whole chapter about this, but the naysayers make fantastic transitions also. So do you think you could use these in your essays? I believe that you can. In fact, I believe that you must if you want to achieve top grades in your college classes.